Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. Very happy to welcome author Jim Heaney. He has written Choosing Presence, How to Access God's Peace and Release Fear, Anxiety, and Stress. And his book could not come at a better time. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Very good.
I love the title, first of all. Are you an academic? Because that is a nice long title there, Choosing Presence, How to Access God's Peace and Release Fear, Anxiety, and Stress.
No, I'm actually a businessman, but I've been actually teaching presence over the last 20 years in talks and classes, and I also do jail ministry where I teach presence.
What do we talk about when you're talking about presence?
Basically, what we're talking about is, I'll give you an example. There was a study done, on the average person thinks approximately 60,000 thoughts a day. And the problem is, that's problem enough, but the problem is of those 60,000 thoughts, 80% of them are negative. So it's a day full of compulsive, repetitive thinking. Now, when we talk about being consciously present, what we're talking about is stopping the flow of all those unconscious thoughts by increasing our awareness. And we increase the awareness by the actual practice of presence. And what the practice of presence does for us, it creates a space within us. Instead of compulsive thinking, we're focused on what we really are experiencing at this moment. I'll give an example. If me, you, or any of the listeners, if they ask themselves this, any time that we have anxiety, stress, worry, or lack of self-esteem, and we ask ourselves, am I actually present in this moment now? The answer, 100% of the time, will be no.
Right.
Now, at the same time, if we ask ourselves, anytime I feel inner freedom, calm, connection with not only God, but with all the people around me, and we said to ourselves, was I present in those moments? 100% of the time, the answer is yes.
Wow.
So the practice of presence completely changes our, what I call a false reality, meaning that when we are unconscious, what actually is happening is we're living through memory or anticipation. We're thinking or obsessing about something that did happen, or we're thinking or obsessing about something that might happen.
True.
Which is completely not reality.
Right.
What the practice of presence does is grounds us in the present moment, and meaning that we have a true perspective of reality. And when we say the practice of presence, we're talking about the peace and power of the present moment. And it is a power because it allows us to stop creating all the inner negativity we create too often during the course of every day.
When we're talking about practicing presence, then it is our presence and Christ's presence at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yes?
Absolutely.
How do we do that? Are there steps to take?
Yes, absolutely. The first thing is we always practice presence with one intention only, and that is to connect with God's spiritual energy. And that is the power that changes us from the inside. But you actually have to do the practice. And what choosing presence does is there's many good books written on presence, but there's not very many that I've come across that actually says, well, how do we actually do it?
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, when I've given a class or give a talk, people have often said, well, of course we believe in God, and we feel God can change our lives. But how do we access his presence in order to allow him to change our lives? So when we say that, all we have to really do is do what he told us to do, and that is be still and know that I am God. So unless we bring in stillness, we're really not going to be aware of what's really going inside of each of us. Once we bring in stillness and become aware that pretty much most of the time we're creating our own inner negativities.
Right.
By living through memory or anticipation. And when we start becoming aware of that, it's the beginning of the end of self-created inner negativity.
60,000 thoughts a day. I just can't imagine who took the time to count those and how we figured that out. But I do wonder, does praise have anything to do with being able to enter God's presence? I think of the scripture that says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. It seems like if we want to get an audience with him and we want to get into his backyard, that praise would be the key to that gate.
Absolutely, 100%. And as a matter of fact, we made a companion app, and the app is free, that can be downloaded on your iPhone.
Wow.
Or your Android phone. And we go step by step. And the first thing, as we take you step by step through the practice of presences, you start it by praising God and asking him what you would like him to do for you inside. Without intention, okay, we're not really going to get far for this reason. There's many people that meditate, and that's wonderful. But if you ask 10 people, why do you meditate? What's your goal? You're probably going to get 10 different answers. Now, the practice of presence, as we talk about it, as I teach it, is that we have to have one intention, connecting with God's spiritual energy. That is what changes us from the inside. And it's not even so much what we do, it's what's being done to us when we bring in stillness with that intention.
Wow. We really don't live in a world that prepares us to be still. We are constantly on the go. And I think that was never more brought to our attention than when suddenly, with the coronavirus, we were told to stay home. Don't go anywhere. And I think a lot of people found out, oh my goodness, this is a different pace than I'm used to. Has that helped with practicing presence? Is that something that we have learned to do better unintentionally because of what we've just been through?
Well, the thing is this, it goes two ways. Unfortunately, so many people in the state that we're in now, they almost feel like nothing's going to work. So why try it? Okay? So what we stress with everyone is, look, you're not going to have confidence in the practice of presence unless you actually do the practice of presence consistently.
Yes.
And that's why we made the free app, to make it very easy for any person who wants to have a closer personal communication with God and connect with his power that enables us to change ourselves inside by stopping the inner negativity we create.
I cannot wait to download this. How do we get it? Do we just go to our regular app store, and what do we type in there?
Just type in Practicing Presence, a Christian Way.
Practicing Presence, a Christian Way.
Yeah. And the reason I want to make that very clear is most, and I'm not saying that they're not beneficial, but here's how I feel. If you're meditating, practicing presence, without the intention of connecting with God's spiritual energy, it may give you relief. It's not going to give you the cure. Only God's Spirit has the cure.
Yeah. Well, and when we're talking about the mind, that can be a pretty tricky thing, and we really wouldn't want to open ourselves up to something that would be not of Him in the first place. It might feel good, but not be of Him. That's going to end up not being good. Is this what Jesus was talking about when He said, don't worry about tomorrow? Today's got enough worries of its own.
100%.
Is
yes.
it?
Well, when He talked to Martha and Mary, when they had dinner at their house, and Martha came over to Jesus complaining, Mary's not helping me. Right. Tell her, get up and help me.
Yeah.
And Jesus very, very clearly says to her, Martha, you are too anxious and you worry about too many things. Mary has chosen the one thing, and that's all you need is the one thing. Be present to His presence.
Yeah. That is true. I believe that 100%. I also believe that you got to get dinner on the table. So help me connect those two dots.
Well, it's like this. Do we have responsibilities? Absolutely. But when we perform our responsibilities, we don't want to be in a state of inner chaos. And too many of us are in that state of inner chaos. We have to be in a state of acceptance, meaning whatever we accept no longer has power over us. Once we stop our inner resistance to what is, we are living in reality.
What will this do to our relationships if everyone suddenly starts being really present for each other?
What it would do, number one, is to each of us personally, it enhances our inner well-being beyond anything we could really imagine, for this reason. This is God's power that He has given us access to when we become still, okay? This is what changes us from the inside. That's the power of presence, His peace and His power in the present moment.
Have you seen marriages improve by practicing presence and parental-children relationships improve through this?
Absolutely.
In what ways?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. My wife, now I've been basically practicing presence, meditating for about close to 25 years. Now, my wife, over the years, okay, has occasionally practiced presence with me. After I wrote the book and did the app, since she started using the app with me every morning, she has not missed one day practicing presence. And her sister asked me, Jim, when are you giving another presence class? I says, well, I'll let you know. I says, well, why do you want to come to the class? And she said, I want what Patricia has.
Wow. Wow.
That's the power. The power comes from attraction. I'm not going to convince anyone or change anyone's life. Only God's Spirit can do that.
As soon as we're done talking, I am downloading this app. It is Practicing Presence, the Christian Way. We're speaking with author Jim Heaney, and he has written an amazing book all about practicing presence. I'll give you the full title when we come back after these words. You're listening to Our Community. Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Jim Heaney, author of Choosing Presence, How to Access God's Peace and Release Fear, Anxiety, and Stress. Jim, you're talking about two things. You're talking about accessing one thing and releasing another thing. How do those things happen simultaneously?
Okay. In order to actually access God's presence, we have to do what He said. Number one, that is,
be still.
Be still. Exactly. As we become still, we get a taste of our vibrant inner life, His spiritual energy within us. And as we practice presence on a regular basis, our inner confidence in his presence becomes stronger and stronger. So often people will try to, whether it's meditation or practicing presence, and they might say, well, I tried it, just didn't work for me. Well, you can't try it intermittently.
Yeah.
You have to try it, as we tell people. You have to try it for at least the first month. Let's put it this way. If you started practicing presence today, the very first day, the next day you're going to say to yourself, this was definitely a better day than the day before.
Oh.
Now, after you practice it for a month, you're going to say, boy, this really works. And after you do it for 3 months, you're going to say, this is really powerful. And I doubt, after we do it for 3 to 6 months, we'll ever go back to what we did before for this reason. We know unmistakably, as we are more present, every aspect of our life is better. We stop creating the inner negativity we created on a regular basis before practicing presence.
Right. What kind of a time commitment are we talking about?
Well, we have on the app, we have, let's say a beginner, we have a 10-minute meditation, practicing presence, a 15-minute, and a 20-minute. And me and my wife do it for 20 minutes, but I always go longer, but it's up to the individual. Mm-hmm. The key is to work up to 20 minutes. But also, what's very important, we had a hourly reminder to take 3 conscious breaths every hour with the same intention. And that is, we say to ourselves, I'm connecting with God's spiritual energy.
How do you do this every hour? Do you actually set a timer on your phone, or how do you know every hour to just stop and breathe?
The app gives you an hourly reminder on your phone.
Wow.
And what's so important about that is St. James said, you do not have because you do not ask.
Right.
We just don't want people just taking 3 breaths for one simple reason. Again, it may give you a little relief. It's not going to give you a cure, because when you do it with the right intention, you start to have a relationship with your vibrant inner life, and that is what changes us from the inside.
Tell me a little bit about what goes on in your thinking process while you are breathing on those hourly 3 breaths.
Actually, what you're doing, what we tell people, is focus on your breath. A slow in breath, slow out breath. Mm-hmm. And we always say a sacred word. For instance, on the in breath, you'll say, I'm connecting with God's spiritual energy. Okay? All peace comes from you.
Yeah.
Let your peace flow through me. That's your intention to start. But then you focus on your breath, and what happens is, suddenly, you feel calmer, more relaxed, and that state deepens as you practice presence on a regular basis consistently.
Would you recommend that we also stay away from tuning into the news?
Yes. As a matter of fact,
I only say that kind of kiddingly because part of that is serious. How much should we let ourselves become upset by the world around us?
I'll give you an example. Thomas Merton wrote a book called Seeds. Okay? And what he says in the book, he says, and this is in the 60s, he says 98% of the news is made up, and sometimes 100% of the news is made up. So it's very, very difficult to. Especially now, the amount of negativity in the news is beyond anything I've seen in my lifetime.
Agreed. Yep. And you mentioned the 60s. I never thought it would look as crazy as it did in the 60s, and I think we're there. It's looking about as crazy.
Yeah, not only are we as crazy, I never realized how many angry people we have in our society.
They need to practice presence. They need to practice presence.
Absolutely.
Let me give you a real quick little lesson I learned as far as news. And I just decided we're all like TV cameras. We see what we focus on. When the Napa fires were happening, we were supposed to be flying out and visiting with our children out in Napa. And everyone thought we were crazy, that we were going to be flying into Napa because everything we saw on the news was that Napa was on fire. But when we got there, we never saw a fire. The only fires that anybody was seeing were those the few sparse, and it was 5% of Napa had some fires. And those were where the cameras were pointing. Where the cameras were not pointing was on the 95% of Napa that was perfectly great and green and lush, and all of those vineyard owners were taking their profits and helping the vineyards that burned so that they could get back into business and back on their feet again. That was a better story, but that was a story that never got told because those cameras only focused on the fires. And I took that as a life lesson. We are like cameras. We see what we decide to focus on. We can focus on this wonderful story of helping neighbor, or we could focus on the fire.
Yes, absolutely.
Your
Unfortunately,
your reaction to that?
Unfortunately, negativity sells.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like people, it's a shame, but the average person gets addicted to negativity. And once they're addicted to negativity, that's why the practice of presence is so important. It gives us a contrast. Mm-hmm. Okay? When we actually practice presence, it's unmistakable the difference how we feel inside when we are consciously present versus how we feel inside when we are unconscious, living through memory or anticipation in fear of something that might happen.
Right.
I'll give you another statistic about worries. This was done, I think, in Cornell University. 85% of all the worries that a person has never happens. 85%.
Say that again, please.
85% of all the worries a person has never happen.
Never happen.
Now, 85% don't happen, but we suffer for the whole 100% of our worries.
Right. Right.
It's almost like we're a glutton for punishment. But the practice of presence stops that negative cycle. We see reality now, and we realize that we're creating most of this inner negativity.
Right.
And once we realize that, as I said before, it's the beginning of the end of self-created inner negativity.
What is it, Jim, that is so attractive about worry and negativity that once a person starts to think that way, that then, as you said, they start to want to think that way more and more and more? Why would that be attractive?
I think it's not so much attractive as addictive. And it's addictive because the examples they see is all negative. Mm-hmm. You know, hopefully a time will come when people will actually be truly consciously present with the intention of connecting with God's spiritual energy. When that becomes the normal, the whole world changes.
Mm-hmm. We'll be in heaven.
You're right. Absolutely.
Does the act of practicing presence, does that come easier to some people than other people? And I'm thinking just that we're all wired differently. Some folks do not like being alone with themselves. So
Correct.
This would require someone being comfortable in their own skin enough to be able to be still and start practicing presence.
See, that's why I made the app. Those people that do find it hard to actually practice presence, like my wife, once they actually, it walks you through, it tells you the intentions, it shows you how to do it, and it guides you until the very end. And it just makes something that a lot of people resist, it just cuts that resistance down to where they realize, wow, this is benefiting every aspect of my life and increasing my relationship with God.
I love, love, love that there's an app. So can you give us, without, giving away everything, because we want everyone to download the app, but can you give us some of the things we're going to find on the app? You said one of the first things is to just start praising God and letting Him know what we want.
Yes. Well, you have, to start with, you have a morning practice. There's 3 different practices on there. You have a morning practice, okay, which we recommend that you do work up to 20 minutes, but you can start at 10 minutes if you're just beginning to practice presence.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have an hourly reminder that reminds us every hour to take 3 conscious breaths. And when I say take 3 conscious breaths, I mean just follow your breath. In slowly, out slowly. Don't be thinking about anything going on at that moment.
Okay.
It takes 30 seconds. And it really grounds us in reality. It sort of renews us throughout the day over and over again. And then the third exercise is we recommend at least once a day, there's 3 simple questions we ask. And as we're breathing in, we ask the first question, and the second, and the third. And it sort of allows us to gauge our spirituality. Meaning, if we take the 3 breaths in as we're asking the 3 questions, and our mind tends to run, when you're finished, if you don't have a sense of peace, just continue to breathe. And by the way, when you actually are consciously breathing, as you do it consistently, what you realize is it doesn't interfere with anything. You can do it while you're working, while you're obviously alone, while you're driving. Any activity you're doing, it brings a sense of rejuvenation over and over again throughout the day.
Well, who could argue with that? The book is Choosing Presence, How to Access God's Peace and Release Fear, Anxiety, and Stress. Jim Heaney, we find that anywhere we buy books, right? Amazon and everywhere we can find a book?
It should be Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and
Awesome.
Yeah, it should be, yes.
Awesome. But be sure to download the app, Practicing Presence, A Christian Way. Thank you so much, Jim Heaney, for bringing this to us on our community today.
Yeah, I also have a Facebook page.
Oh, perfect.
Jim Heaney Choosing Presence.
Say that one more time, please.
Jim Heaney Choosing Presence.
Jim Heaney Choosing Presence. Thank you again for joining us in our community.
Okay, thank you very much.